Largest Roman bath complex ever found in the Netherlands, unearthed beneath Nijmegen, revealing a 2000-year-old Roman city. Archaeologists have made one of the most remarkable Roman discoveries in Dutch history after uncovering the largest Roman bath complex ever found in the Netherlands beneath the modern city of Nijmegen. Now let's go beyond the surface and reveal every layer of this story on our AI
So imagine
podcast.
you're sitting in the cab of Bathhouse. You've got your hard hat on, coffee thermos right next to you.
Right. A totally normal Tuesday.
Exactly. And you dig down into the mud of this standard Dutch housing project, fully expecting like dirt, maybe some rebar, or I don't know, cracked concrete from some old industrial lot.
Yeah, just standard construction debris.
Right. But instead, your bucket scrapes against something completely unyielding. You clear away the soil, and you suddenly find yourself staring at the massive, sprawling foundations of an actual 2,000-year-old architectural masterpiece.
I mean, it is literally the kind of scenario archaeologists joke about at conferences. Like, we just assume it will never actually happen to us.
But in this case, on a muddy riverbank in the Netherlands, it actually did.
It really did. It's wild.
And that is our mission for this deep dive. We are heading to the city of Nijmegen to explore this newly unearthed, just colossal Roman bath complex.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah, we are going to look at what this 5,000 square meter site reveals about ancient frontier life and dive into the actual engineering that made Roman luxury possible at the absolute edge of the known world.
Right. And also figure out how modern city planners are supposed to build a 21st century neighborhood directly on top of buried history.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this because the sheer volume of earth they had to move just to uncover this thing is staggering.
The physical scale of the excavation entirely mirrors the historical weight of the find. I mean, it's vital to set the stakes here because when most people hear Roman ruins in Northern Europe, they usually picture, a few scattered post holes.
Right, or maybe a tiny stretch of a defensive wall.
Exactly, or a handful of broken clay pots. But this specific discovery, it completely shatters our conventional understanding of the wealth and the sophisticated infrastructure of the Roman Empire's northwestern frontier.
Yeah, the location alone is what initially caught my eye. I mean, this wasn't dug up in the shadow of the Colosseum in Rome or nestled on the Mediterranean coast.
No, not at all.
This was found right on the banks of the river wall during an excavation for a new residential neighborhood. And the footprint is almost incomprehensible for that region.
It really is.
Nearly 5,000 square meters of complex masonry dating back to the 1st and 2nd centuries AD.
To put that into an architectural perspective, that surpasses every previously uncovered Roman bathhouse in the entire country.
Wait, really? Every single one?
Yeah. Dutch archaeology has these well-known, celebrated Roman sites in places like Heerlen and Voorburg, but this Nijmegen complex, it absolutely dwarfs them. It is a true mega structure.
When I was reading the site reports, I was really trying to visualize 5,000 square meters in a modern context. It is the equivalent of a massive luxury resort, or like a high-end, multi-level mega gym completely buried beneath an unassuming industrial park.
That's a perfect way to picture it.
And the engineering required to just lay the foundations on a riverbank, dealing with ancient water tables and soil subsidence, it must have been an absolute nightmare.
What's fascinating here is how that level of engineering investment fundamentally shifts our historical perspective. We've long operated under the assumption that the fringes of the Roman Empire were these rugged, utilitarian, purely militaristic outposts.
Like rough men in rough conditions.
Right, exactly. But a complex of this size requires an army of specialized labor. You need stonemasons, hydraulic engineers, logisticians.
You have to get it built.
Yeah, and a massive sustained population to actually use it and pay for its upkeep. It proves Nijmegen wasn't just a camp, it was a thriving, highly capitalized settlement at the absolute height of Roman rule.
It really makes you look at your daily commute differently. Like, I want you, listening right now, to imagine walking over an ugly, cracked concrete lot every single day, completely oblivious to the fact that a monumental piece of ancient civic engineering is sitting right under your shoes.
It's mind-blowing.
But the sheer exterior scale of a 5,000 square meter footprint naturally raises a mechanical question. How did they actually heat and manage a building of that size in the damp, freezing cold of a northern European winter?
That is where the interior engineering of a Roman bathhouse becomes truly brilliant. The bathing experience wasn't just, walking into a large heated room with a pool.
Right.
It was a carefully orchestrated physiological journey through distinct thermal zones, relying on a system known as a hypocaust.
Yeah, I saw that term in the research. The archaeologists found the foundations for the three essential chambers, right? The frigidarium, which is the cold bathing chamber, the tepidarium, which is the warm transitional room, and the caldarium, the intense hot room.
Spot on.
But how does a hypocaust actually drive that kind of extreme temperature change?
So the hypocaust is essentially an ancient subterranean central heating system. Instead of building a solid floor, Roman engineers suspended the floor of a caldarium and tepidarium on hundreds of these stacked brick pillars.
Called pile, right?
Yes, the pile. And outside the building, enslaved workers would continuously feed these massive roaring furnaces. The intensely hot flue gases and smoke from those fires were drawn underneath the suspended floors,
Oh, wow.
and then up through hollow terracotta tiles built directly into the walls before finally venting out of the roof.
So the smoke never actually enters the room where the people are bathing, but the floor and the walls themselves radiate this intense, constant heat. You are basically standing inside a giant ambient radiator.
Precisely. It is thermodynamics applied at a massive civic scale. And the further a room was from the furnace, the cooler it was, which naturally created that perfect gradient from the boiling caldarium to the temperate tepidarium.
That is incredibly clever. And the excavation showed this wasn't just a one-and-done construction project either. They found clear structural evidence of multiple expansions over the decades.
Building new wings onto a heavy masonry structure while keeping that whole hypocaust system functional is incredibly complex.
I can imagine.
You just don't undertake those expansions unless there is a severe bottleneck in capacity. Researchers look at those additions and see a rapidly growing urban population.
That makes sense.
It also points to a shift in civic culture, potentially expanding to provide separate, dedicated bathing hours or entirely separate facilities for men and women as the city became more formalized.
Okay, I have to push back a little on the traditional view of the ancient world we grew up with here.
Yeah.
Even with the impressive heating, we are still talking about a frontier town in the mud.
True.
Yet the site reports document imported marble cladding on the walls, elegant black and white limestone flooring, painted stucco and decorative sandstone columns. Getting raw marble across the Alps and down to the Dutch riverlands in the 1st century sounds logistically impossible for just a local bathhouse.
It was an immense logistical hurdle, and that is why those materials are so vital to understanding the site. Moving heavy stone in antiquity relied entirely on water transport.
So they couldn't just throw it on a wagon.
Definitely not. They had to quarry that marble in the Mediterranean, load it onto specialized coastal cargo ships, navigate the rough Atlantic coast, and then drag it up the river networks.
That is absurd.
Right. Finding those specific decorative features, which were usually reserved for prestigious public basilicas in major hubs like Rome or Pompeii, it proves the exceptional status of this specific city. This wasn't a frontier outpost trying to mimic Rome. This was Rome, fully materialized in the north.
That massive investment in infrastructure brings up the human element for me. Because the hypocausts and the marble columns, that's just the machinery of the building.
Yeah, the bones.
The true life of the space is found in what fell through the cracks of those limestone floors. Because the site didn't just yield bricks. The archaeologists basically uncovered a 2,000-year-old lost and found bin.
Oh, absolutely. The micro-artifacts are always where the broader historical narrative crystallizes into individual human stories.
And the inventory here is just incredible. They pulled up fragments of finely crafted bronze statues. They found an elegant necklace still retaining its gold clasp.
Beautiful stuff.
They uncovered Roman signet rings. And for anyone who isn't familiar, a signet ring wasn't just a piece of decorative jewelry, right? It was highly functional.
It was effectively the ancient equivalent of a secure ID badge and a credit card rolled into one.
Wow.
Yeah, a signet ring featured a unique engraved gemstone or metal face, and it was used to stamp wax seals on legal documents, trade agreements, personal letters. Dropping your signet ring in the baths wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a major security risk for a merchant or a local official.
Imagine the sheer panic of realizing you left your primary financial and legal identifier next to the cold plunge pool.
It would be a bad day.
A terrible day. But my absolute favorite detail from the excavation is the discovery of hundreds of bone hair pins. Here's where it gets really interesting, because these pins were used by women to hold up these incredibly elaborate, towering, gravity-defying Roman hairstyles.
Yes, the Flavian styles. They were wild.
Finding hundreds of them swept into the drains suddenly makes these ancient people feel so, I don't know, tactile.
It grounds the archaeology in daily mundane reality.
You can just picture it. A wealthy Roman woman is relaxing in the tepidarium, leaning back against the heated marble wall, and a hairpin slips out. It clatters to the floor, she can't find it in the steam, and it eventually gets washed into a drainage culvert.
Right, just totally lost.
This shatters the illusion of these people as stiff marble statues.
Yeah.
They were just people losing their accessories at the pool.
It does humanize them, but the sheer volume of those specific artifacts, the signet rings, the gold clasps, the hairpins, it also provides hard socioeconomic data.
How so?
Well, it tells us that visiting the baths was not primarily about hygiene. If you just wanted to get clean, you could wash at home. The baths were the primary arena for networking, closing business deals, and displaying your status.
I see.
The intricate hairstyles requiring those bone pins would take enslaved hairdressers hours to construct. You didn't wear that style to get it wet. You wore it to be seen by the local elite. Art, fashion, and the aggressive display of personal wealth were paramount to daily life on this frontier.
Which naturally leads to the core economic question. To have hundreds of local elites displaying gold and dropping signet rings, you need a massive local economy. Why was all this extreme wealth and culture concentrated in this specific muddy spot on the river wall?
That requires us to zoom out and look at the geopolitical map of the first century. Around AD 100, this settlement wasn't just growing organically, it was officially granted prestigious city rights by the Emperor Trajan himself.
And he gave it a very intentional branded name, right? Ulpia, Noviomagus, Batavorum. I'm looking at that first word, Ulpia, which comes directly from Trajan's own family name, Ulpius.
Yep.
My immediate thought is that this was kind of the ultimate ancient PR move by the local leaders. They basically slapped the emperor's name on their city limits as a way to secure imperial funding and tax breaks.
It's a solid theory, and patron-client dynamics were definitely at play there, but the naming was likely a top-down initiative from Trajan himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if we connect this to the bigger picture, Trajan was a brilliant military commander who deeply understood logistics. He wasn't just doing the locals a favor, he was securing a vital imperial asset. This city was situated right near a major crossing of the River Rhine.
And the Rhine wasn't just a river, it was the ancient superhighway of northern Europe.
It was the logistical spine of the frontier. If we want a modern analogy, the Rhine crossing at Nijmegen functioned a bit like the Suez Canal or the Strait of Malacca today.
Oh, wow, that important.
Absolutely. It was a massive, unavoidable geographic choke point connecting the maritime trade of the North Sea with the deep, resource-rich European interior. Any timber, grain, enslaved people, or luxury goods moving through that region had to pass through this corridor.
So the city essentially operated as a giant toll booth and trading hub.
A trading hub that was intentionally built directly adjacent to a massive Roman legionary fortress. This is the crucial economic engine. You have a permanent garrison of roughly 5,000 highly trained soldiers stationed there.
And soldiers receive a guaranteed imperial salary in silver denarii.
Exactly. You drop 5,000 men with guaranteed disposable income into a transit hub, and the economic explosion is immediate. They need leather for armor, grain for bread, blacksmiths, taverns, and entertainment.
Right. The whole supply chain just booms.
Civilian commerce floods down the Rhine to supply that military demand. The geography dictated the military placement. The military placement generated a massive artificial economy, and that economy built the marble walls of Ulpia, Noviomagus, Batavorum.
Follow the supply chain and you find the money. It's that simple.
Always.
But the Roman economy eventually...
Do you halt modern progress and freeze the city as a museum, or do you document the ruins, bulldoze them, and build the future?
In most cases, I feel like developers just quietly pour concrete over the problem.
Sadly. Yeah.
But the city of Nijmegen opted for a third path. They didn't bury the ruins, but they also didn't abandon the housing project. They decided to physically and architecturally integrate the ancient foundations into the new neighborhood.
It is an incredibly ambitious approach, both philosophically and structurally.
They're redesigning the central public square of this new development to encompass the ruins, literally naming it Thermenplein, or Bath Square. And they are designing modern covered walkways that draw direct architectural inspiration for the traditional Roman colonnades that once stood there.
So what does this all mean for the actual engineers? How do you suspend a modern residential grid over a 2,000-year-old hypocaust system without just crushing it? Structurally, it requires absolute precision. Engineers have to map the structural load of the new buildings to ensure that the modern foundation pillars, which often utilize micropiles or cantilevered spans, thread the needle perfectly.
Wow.
Yeah, they have to drive down into the bedrock without intercepting the ancient brickwork. Furthermore, once you expose ancient masonry to modern air and rain, it rapidly degrades.
Oh, of course.
So the integration requires a sophisticated passive climate control strategy around the ruins to manage moisture and prevent the sandstone and mortar from crumbling.
It is a massive financial and logistical commitment just to keep the ruins visible.
It is, which is why this raises an important question about the value we place on heritage. Dutch officials are rightfully calling this a milestone in urban archaeology. By keeping the ruins in situ, meaning in their original geographical context, they are rejecting the idea that history only belongs behind glass in a sterile museum.
It becomes part of the daily geography of the neighborhood. A resident living in one of these new apartments might, walk their dog in the morning, grab a coffee, and stroll right past the exact physical coordinates where a Roman merchant stamped a wax seal with his signet ring 2 millennia ago.
Yeah, exactly.
The shadow cast by the modern grocery store awning literally mimics the shadow of the ancient caldarium. It collapses the distance between the 1st century and the 21st century in a way that reading a textbook simply can't achieve.
It fosters a deep, subconscious civic identity. You understand on a visceral level that you are just the latest temporary resident in a very long continuum of human habitation.
That is beautifully put. Let's take a moment to pull all these threads together because the sheer density of what we've covered today is remarkable. We started with the backhoe scraping mud on the river wall and uncovered a sprawling 5,000 square meter Roman megacomplex. We explored the subterranean thermodynamics of the hypocaust heating system, allowing us to understand how raw, radiant heat kept frontier citizens sweating in the caldarium.
Right.
We looked at the bone hairpins and lost signet rings that brought the social climbing and daily anxieties of the ancient world to life. And we traced the funding for all that luxury back to the strategic brilliance of Emperor Trajan, leveraging the Rhine River as a logistical superhighway to supply a massive military garrison.
It brilliantly illustrates how geography, military logistics, and everyday human desires interlock to create urban history.
And it serves as a powerful reminder to you, the listener, that the mundane world around us, the concrete sidewalks, the industrial parks, the riverbanks, it's just the top layer of an incredibly deep, rich historical cake. The past isn't gone. It is literally supporting the ground you stand on.
Which leaves me with a final thought to ponder. We've spent this time analyzing the physical remnants these ancient Romans left behind. Their subterranean heating flues, their imported marble, their lost hairpins, all to reconstruct their values and their economy. If modern developers just unearthed this luxury complex beneath a planned Dutch neighborhood, well, imagine the archaeologists of the future, say, 2,000 years from now. When they excavate the foundations of the modern residential buildings we are constructing today on that exact same riverbank, what will they deduce about our daily lives, our wealth, and our societal priorities? What will be our era's version of the bone hairpin, and what will it say about the things we valued most?
That is a phenomenal perspective to leave off on. Our own modern layers waiting patiently to be dug up and deciphered. On that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. Keep your eyes open next time you walk past a construction site. Keep questioning the complex mechanics of the world beneath your feet. And most importantly, stay curious. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Okay, one question for you. How does the discovery of the largest Roman bath complex ever found in the Netherlands change our understanding of Roman civilization? And what does it reveal about the wealth, engineering, and daily life of ancient Nijmegen? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.